You're shopping for football shoes for your kid. He or she wants the fancy ones with the blades underneath. What's under that shoe decides whether the ground gives way when they plant and turn, or whether the knee does. As a physio, I check two things before I buy my kids' shoes. One of them is usually printed on the box, and is the reason my kids have ended up with two pairs instead of one. And at the end of this video, I'll also give you a free tool for the other big decision we parents make away from the pitch, which is what our kids actually do with the ball at home. But first though, what's actually happening in the ground? Research for this started with a conversation some weeks back. Another parent asked me whether the type of studs their child uses actually makes any difference to injuries, to performance, to any of it. And it struck both of us that a lot of what gets said about this is not backed by anything. What shoe for what surface? What shape of foot? This stud, that pitch. At least that's my experience, and I might be biased though. I didn't have a good answer for the other parent. I worked with knees and ankles for a living, and I was fairly sure the research supported something about stud shape, and beyond that, I'd have been guessing. Also, for years, I bought my own kids whatever was on offer in the right size, so I'm not saying I'm doing a much better job than anyone else, really. So I went home and read what's been published, and it supported a lot more than I expected it to. Natural grass is loose, and the soil underneath it works a bit like a fuse. And when the rotational forces get high enough, the ground gives way first. The foot slips a few degrees, so the foot moves instead of the ankle or the knee, neither of which was ever built to be twisted like that. Now, put a fully bladed sole on that same foot. Traction goes way up, and your child really is quicker out of a standstill. That part is true, and it might be part of why those shoes sell so well. But that same traction does another thing as well. It makes getting stuck much more likely as the studs hold the soil in place, so the ground can't give way anymore. The forces still have to go somewhere, and that's when the ligaments of the ankle or the knee might become diffuse. Compare that with old school round studs. They do sort of the opposite. They've got decent grip, but allow for more slipping, perhaps more than you'd want, as that increased slippage is increasing the risk of muscle strains, hamstrings in particular. What they rarely do though is get the foot stuck in the ground, so they're less often the reason a knee goes. So neither extreme is usually the answer on grass. The sweet spot on grass sits between them. The difference is bigger than I expected. Compared with non-aggressive studs, the very aggressive patterns the bladed ones, come with a 35% higher injury risk. The mildly aggressive ones, the mixed designs with some blades and some more rounded studs, have around 40% lower injury risk. And that's with the same foot, on the same child, on the same pitch. Now, change the surface. Lots of kids are on artificial grass at least half the week. Around here, pretty much all we have are artificial surfaces. On turf, especially older, worn turf, the regular studs stop being the best option for performance and for injuries both. Longer studs on artificial grass do one of two things. You don't get enough contact to hold, so your child spends the match half ice skating, or they get stuck. That's particularly true as artificial grass doesn't have the same fuse as natural grass does. It doesn't give way the same kind of way that natural grass does. So when something has to move, it's not the surface, it's the ankle or the knee. So on turf, kids really benefit from a sole built for it. Shorter studs, and a lot more of them. They move better because they're not slipping and they don't get stuck as easily. Another thing from reading that research kind of surprised me, and that is that the number of studs really matters, and neither direction, too many or too few, is the safe one. Fewer than 11 studs, roughly, puts the pressure through a smaller number of spots underneath the foot. And more than 13 sounds safer than, because it spreads the load, but it doesn't seem that way, because now the stud sits under parts of the foot that aren't really adapted to have pressure underneath them. And that mismatch has sort of a signature injury, fifth metatarsal fractures, the small bone on the outside edge of the foot running out towards the little toe. And across every sport, globally, football accounts for close to 40% of those kind of injuries. The decision which shoe to buy sort of lands on us as parents by default. The coach is very unlikely to turn a boot over and look at the sole. And as a physio, I usually only meet the kids after they've picked up an injury. You're the one who knows they're on turf on Tuesday and grass on Saturday, and you're the one standing there, money in your pocket, looking to get a good deal in the shop. Nobody else has that same full picture. So here's what I actually check when I buy boots for my kids. 1, does it fit? And is it comfortable? That's before anything else. Comfort and injury risk track each other closely enough that if the shoe genuinely fits and the sole matches the surface, you've done nearly everything that's available to you. That's the 10-second one, the one most parents already move toward naturally, which is great. And just make sure there's enough, but not too much room at the toe, that the heel doesn't lift when they walk, and properly ask them whether anything rubs. If they hesitate, it does. And just a quick note here, if you're buying for a girl during or after puberty, it's worth trying a female specific fit. Most shoes are built around a male foot, and a female heel and midfoot are slightly narrower, so girls can end up sliding around inside the shoe and sort of gripping to hold on. And that work, it travels up the leg. Whether that's part of why girls tear their ACLs at somewhere between 2 and 8 times the rate boys do, there's no certain data on that as of now, but that's not to say that it doesn't influence it. Try out the pair in the shop, and obviously if the standard shoe is more comfortable for your child, buy her that one. 2, does the sole match the ground they're actually playing on? And this is the one usually on the box. FG, AG, SG, firm ground, artificial ground, soft ground. For artificial turfs, choose a turf sole, shorter studs, lots of them. For natural grass, try choosing a mixed pattern, and what you can look for without knowing anything about football shoes is you turn it over. If every stud is a long blade, try finding another one. If every stud is a round peg, again, see if you can find another one. You want a mix of the shapes, some round, some more elongated. 11 or 12 seems to be the sweet spot in terms of numbers. So, back to the pair your kid picked up. The blades aren't a scam, and they're not going to hurt anyone by existing. They're a grass boot at the aggressive end. And most of our kids don't spend most of their week on grass. If your child spends half the time on natural grass and half the time on artificial grass, that might be the case for a second pair of football shoes. That's it. 2 things. The brand isn't on the list, and neither is the price. Does stud shape and pattern matter as much for a 6-year-old as a 15-year-old? No. But by the time your kid is older than 10, this could become important quickly. None of this turns your child into an equipment project. They're going to outgrow this pair in a few months anyway, and you'll be right back in that shop. It just means that those 4 minutes that you spend deciding, they actually do something. Because a kid who gets planted, stuck on the wrong surface, doesn't lose a week. They might lose a season at best. So, comfortable and matched to the surface they're playing on. Go have a look at what's in the hallway tonight, not to replace it, just so you know what you're working with. Football shoes are one of the inputs we parents have some control over. What our kids do with the ball at home could be another one. The Backyard Architect, found in the link in the description below, can help you build a practice session, a play session around your child, your space, and whatever's around. It's free for you to download, so go use it before the next training session. And if you want me to look at your child's whole week, the surfaces they play on, the training load, practice sessions, all of it really, the link for working with me is below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.